So here we are, next stop, Normal. The state championships are looming. It's bittersweet. It's a bittersweet time of year. It's, the highlight of the season, but it also means the season is wrapping up. Mitch, are you ready to walk the sidelines and cover some state championships?
Yeah, like you said, it's bittersweet in that it's ending, but boy, we've got some great games coming up on Friday. Obviously covering one of our teams, but excited just to see some great football, as always, with the state championships.
So, Mitch, you and I will be walking the sidelines in Bloomington Normal, and we'll be joined by Kyle Kampmier from NIUCFootball.com. We got him in on this podcast. We're going to be recapping the 8-man state championship game, and then we're getting into the state championship games for 1A. So let's jump right in. Talking Illinois high school football.
If your goals are as high as you talk about, tonight's the night you go out and just take one more step.
It's a view from the West.
And it starts right now!
Welcome into View from the West podcast, the podcast covering Illinois high school football on the western side of the state of Illinois. I'm your host, Greg Armstrong, joined once again, as always, by Mitch Stormer. Mitch, here we are. Just one game left for everyone remaining on the schedule. And honestly, 8-man, it's over. We've already decided a state champion. Kyle Kampmier and I were walking the sideline. We're covering that game. So we'll get into that one in a few minutes here. But are you ready for state championship weekend?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, it was a great weekend of semifinal games. We're going to be seeing some new teams there in Bloomington Normal that have either not been ever before or haven't been in a real long time. And you're going to see some teams that we happen to see a lot, teams that we don't cover, but teams that we see a lot in the state championship. So, those old traditional teams are back in it, but mixed in with some new faces. Should be a really fun weekend.
Yep. So I just referenced Kyle Kampmier in on the pod this week. Kyle, you've been kind of traveling the state the last couple days to see some great high school football. You saw the 8-man state championship we'll talk about in a minute. You also were in Leroy for Leroy going up against Lena Winslow, making it back to another state championship game. So, a traveled seasoned veteran here of the postseason. You're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like we talked about. When you get to this time of the year, you're excited, especially more excited when you have area teams that are going to represent your area of coverage. But on top of that, just the excitement as the season comes to an end. We're here at the big show, all these great games taking place. I'm excited once again, as I usually am, because I'm a little kid in a candy store when it comes to the state championship game, because it's like the pinnacle at the top of the end of the season. And it's always a lot of fun. And we have a lot of intriguing matchups between Class 1A to 4A that we're going to be there live for. And I'm excited. I mean, there's some teams that I've never seen play in person, like Montini Catholic and Chicago Christian. And I'm excited to see those teams.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a few years since I've been at the state championships. So I'm excited to get there, shoot some video, get some highlights, and just kind of be around the whole atmosphere. Kyle, we talked about it when we were covering the 8-man game last week, that it's kind of the celebration of the whole season, right? You get to see a lot of people, a lot of familiar faces. You get to meet a lot of people that you've only talked to, through text or through email. It's just, I'm really excited. It's going to be a ton of fun. Obviously, Mitch and I will be there. Kyle, you'll be there. Ty Taylor from WRMJ, who's joined us throughout the season, he'll be there. I'm hoping that all four of us can get an Instant Reacts podcast to the end of the night, between the 1A through 4A games. I think it'll be a blast. It'll be a ton of fun.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought that was the absolute plan, was to get that Instant Reacts.
Well, I just want to make sure the listeners know to be ready for it, because it's coming.
I was just going to say for the listeners, 3 very important things. 1, I've never met Ty Taylor. 2, I've never met Kyle in person. And 3, Greg, you and I haven't even been in the same room in probably over a decade. So
I said about 10 years. Yeah, crazy.
So to the listeners, it may not seem like any of that is true, but all 3 of those things are very true. So football aside, very excited to be with the boys on Friday morning.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, Mitch, if we're talking about amazing high school football and some great weekends watching on the sidelines. Let's thank our sponsor who makes it all happen.
Yeah, made it all happen all season long. Still a lot of work to do here in the postseason, which we'll get into after the state championships. But tonight's episode, as always, is brought to us by our friends at Breedlove Sporting Goods, Western Illinois' premier sporting goods store for uniforms, apparel, equipment, awards, and as we know, Greg, online team stores. They provide all the same sporting goods services as the big nationwide companies, but with a faster turnaround. And their uniform pricing is a fraction of the cost you're probably used to. They offer names such as Adidas, Under Armour, and Nike, and are extremely responsive with any inquiries. With a primary focus on the western side of the state of Illinois, Breedlove Sporting Goods is the fastest way to outfit your team. Check them out on Facebook or at breedlovesports.com, or shoot Cal Breedlove an email at calbreedlove@gmail.com for more information.
Well, when you're talking about uniforms there, Mitch, this is a huge week for View from the West. We have so much content coming out in a short span here. So let's break it all down. Obviously, this is our weekly recap and then look ahead. So we're talking about the semifinals of the 8-man state championship game, and we're looking ahead to the weekend that is, as we talked about, with the 1A through 8A state championships. But when we're talking about those matchups, we, of course, Mitch, have to talk about the uniforms. So that episode is coming out on Wednesday morning. Depending on when you're listening to this, it may already be out. Our UniView state championship preview episode. You got to check that out. And now it's in audio form. But Mitch, the way to really consume that is through video. You got to watch the episode on our YouTube channel, because that's where you're going to see all the details of all the helmets, all the trim, all the uniform details you need to know. Am I right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You did a great job with the graphics this year, as you have all season and years past. So we'll have, both helmets that you created. You mocked those up, and then we've got images that we've had some great collaborations with some local photographers that have given us permission to use their nice photos, so you can get a real clean glimpse of these uniforms. May not always be exactly what they're going to wear on Friday and Saturday. Some of these teams can switch it up, but you'll get a sense of what they wear. And from an aesthetic standpoint, we can, that's really the only way you can judge a football game anymore. So we pick these games based on who looks better.
Yep. So that's our UniView state championship preview. But wait, there's more. This is our preview to the state championship games, but we're talking 1A and 2A state championships. That's really kind of our bread and butter on this side of the state. We're going to be talking to all 4 of the head coaches involved in the 1A and the 2A state championship games. That being Rick Arend from Lena, Winslow, Austin Frazier from Belleville, Althoff. In the 2A game, you got CJ Cesario from Chicago Christian and Josh Jostis from Merle Forsyth. So I'm really excited to get one-on-one with them, get their thoughts on the game, get their thoughts on their team and how their season's played out. It's great to
one-on-one. I'm going to be there, Greg.
Okay.
Oh, come on.
That's
Jeez,
true. Not technically one-on-one then, I guess. But I'm really excited. Mitch, it's really cool to be able to kind of pick their brain and kind of see where their mindset is going into the state title game.
Yeah, we were listening to them this morning on the IHSA media call. Tried to withhold back some questions that we could save for our call with them. But yeah, good to get an insight of what they are all about, and learn a little bit more, maybe some things that we don't know, or things that you can't see on film from these teams. So yeah, really good to get to know these coaches, and all 4 of them, really great guys, really great coaches. And yeah, looking forward to talking to them ourselves.
Yep. So depending on when you're listening to this episode, those will be available on Wednesday morning or on Wednesday, along with our UniView state championship previews. So this episode is obviously out Tuesday morning, like always. And on Wednesday, all that content drops. So just a lot of information, a lot of content coming out this week from View from the West. We're really excited. I can't wait. Again, I can't wait for Friday. I can't wait to be there. And Mitch, we'll be kind of shooting video throughout the day, just kind of chronicling the whole day, kind of journaling out our whole process. So gathering video as we go. And Kyle, you'll be in the mix. You'll be, in and out of the videos as well. So we'll be getting your insights throughout the day. I can't wait.
I'm excited. Like I said, just to be at the state championship games. Second trip to normal for me. I really enjoyed the experience that ISU brought last year. A lot of people were very open and welcome to it, quote unquote, coming back home to where it belongs. And
Yep.
it's been awesome. I mean, and one of the biggest things too is like this season is Illinois State is in the playoffs this year, and they were supposed to have a home game today or this weekend, but because they wanted to make sure that they were the host, they determined that in order to make sure that the state championship was held at Illinois State, if they got into the playoffs and were going to be the home team, that they would willingly go on the road. And that's exactly what Coach Spack and his team is doing this weekend. They're going on the road as the higher seed. That way IHSA can host the state championships at Hancock Stadium.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I saw it was floating around social media, throughout the day today. And I think that's so cool that Brock Spack, the head coach at Illinois State, steps up and says, this is where Illinois State championships should be played. And we're, proud to host it. And we're willing to go on the road as a team. I think that's a huge statement for Illinois State, right? I think it's a great recruiting tool. I think it shows the commitment there. We already know what Coach Bielema does at Illinois, committed to recruiting the local Illinois kids. And I think to see Brock Spack kind of jump on board as well, really cool stuff. Mitch, what do you got?
No, I was actually going to bring that up too. And obviously there's people on the other side of that argument who are saying you can't really put a price on giving up a home playoff game. Well, I think you can, because as Coach Beck kind of mentioned, you get 16 fan bases coming to the campus to see what it's all about. If they're trying to maybe waste some time before being able to enter the stadium or right before in between games, they get to look around and get a feel for the atmosphere. So no, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think it's a great thing for Illinois State. Obviously, they embrace the IHSA coming back for these state championships. So yeah, I'm looking forward to going.
Yep. All right. Well, there you go. That's kind of what you can expect this week from View from the West. You can find us on X. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram. We got the highlights up, some highlights from the Amboy win over Milledgeville in the 8-man state title game. I'm hoping later this week to get kind of the full highlights of all of the plays throughout the game, the post-game interviews from Milledgeville, along with the post-game interviews from Amboy. We got a ton of great coverage there. So I posted out the immediate highlights the night of, but I'm hoping to expand on that later this week. So watch for that on our YouTube channel. But let's start there. In the 8-man state championship game, Amboy gets the win 42-14 over Milledgeville. Clippers repeat as I8FA state champions. They join Polo as the only other team to win multiple 8-man state titles. And man, Kyle, you were there with me. From the very beginning, man, Amboy came out and they were physical and they were tough at the line of scrimmage. And that created some huge opportunities for their running game. And Amboy jumped up 14-0. And it just really seemed like the momentum that Milledgeville had been building up for a few weeks was immediately erased. And Milledgeville played well throughout the second half, but man, Amboy jumped out so strong. I was really impressed.
Yeah, I thought, that first defensive series for Milledgeville where they forced a 3-and-out, forced the punt, and then they returned the punt to Amboy's 37-yard line. I really thought that you could not have had a better start to the game than what Milledgeville had.
Yep.
But then Amboy just stymied everything that Milledgeville could do from that point forward. And like you said, the line of scrimmage was one up front, and Amboy was just able to run at will. I mean, I think that was one of the posts. Quinn Leffelman can do whatever he wants tonight, and it was true. I mean, when they needed a big run up the middle, they would go to him. Josh McKendry was their leading rusher all season long. He was struggled getting things going early on, but they give it to the big horse up the middle, and he took off with it.
Yeah. What I was really impressed with was how many different Amboy Clippers scored touchdowns in this game. So you had Josh McKendry, Ed Fry, Braden Klein, Quinn Leffelman, all with rushing touchdowns in the win. I mean, just the ability to spread the ball out in the 8-man level, man, that's a recipe for success when you have that many fresh bodies ready to run the ball. I mean, I think they've done that throughout the year. Am I right?
Yeah, that's been their MO all year. Obviously, Leffelman had the high ankle sprain early in the year, actually had to sit out for 2 games, but even in his return, they hadn't really utilized him a whole lot, and I'm assuming it's mainly based on that and the
Yeah.
fact that they were able to get Fry and Klein and McKendry off and running and didn't really need to utilize Leffelman as much as they had in the past 2 years. So that I think Coach Payne even called it like his 4-headed monster.
Yeah.
Because he had the ability to just move people in and out and run with it. It didn't matter what they did or who they had personnel wise. That line did everything for them.
Yeah, it was really impressive. So they were up 20-0 at halftime, I believe. And Milledgeville came out in the second half and they really put up a fight. So they had, I believe, they scored twice in the third quarter, and Amboy had a couple answers in there, but it really felt like where the momentum flipped was Carter Livingood had a 54-yard touchdown run where he just weaved through the Amboy defense, had a couple great blocks downfield, and was able to score. And on the immediate ensuing kickoff, Milledgeville tried an onside kick, and man, on that turf, it's a perfect turf bounce right to, was it Caden
Heath?
Caden Heath, I mean, scoops it up in stride, and he's gone for a touchdown. And that was a real momentum swing, I think, right? I mean, you had Milledgeville was within 2 scores, and then to have that happen on the kickoff, it's just, that's a punch in the gut.
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely getting the momentum. They came out in the second half, received the ball. They went right down. They scored, got a 2-point conversion to make it 20-8. Amboy came back, ended up scoring to increase that lead to 26-8.
Yep.
But then the Livingood touchdown brought it back within 12 points after the missed 2-point conversion. And you just felt like Milledgeville was actually starting to gain the momentum. And then they did the onside kick. I think there was still like 7 minutes left in the third quarter at that point. And of course, there's some people that are already out there questioning, why do we onside kick that there? But it is what it is. You got to try stuff. It's a state championship game. And me personally, I didn't think it was a bad call per se, because you had to try something. You could definitely tell that Amboy was doing whatever they wanted to do.
Yeah.
It was just the unfortunate bounce of the kick.
I will say, yeah, based on what we had seen in the first half, the way that, like we talked about, Amboy was controlling the line of scrimmage, it seemed like that was an aggressive move. But maybe at that point in the game, you got to try to keep that momentum. And if you get the onside kick, if something happens there where you do come up with the ball, man, then you're really starting to talk about a game. And, I think that when we talk about momentum in high school athletics, it's huge, right? I mean, you start getting kids, they're getting thrown off, right? They're getting rattled. I think it could have really flipped some things. It didn't work. And Amboy really then grabbed, seized the momentum right back and really took control of the game. But I agree. I think it was a risky call, but I think it's probably a call worth making there if you felt confident in your playmakers. And it was just an unlucky turf bounce. It didn't go your way in that, in that scenario. So, Mitch, were you watching this game throughout?
Yep, I was watching this whole thing, and I echoing what you guys are or have said. It just seemed like every single time that Milledgeville had something going right, Amboy had an answer. And to your point, Drake Landsman got a great quote from Coach Payne about that kick. He said, "I've only seen that one other time. It was against us, against Hiawatha 4 years ago. That was an incredible play by Caden Heath. When he picked it up and took off running, at first I'm like, no. And then, yes, no." And to echo what you guys had just said, he said the same thing. He saw the opening, took off, and I think that really got the momentum back in our favor at that point in time. So again, you that play, Eddie Jones had an interception at 1.2 on a Milledgeville drive. So every time that Milledgeville just looked like they were going to get something moving, Amboy had an answer. So really, really great win for Amboy once again here in the 8-man state championship game.
Yeah, Kyle, you've coached youth athletics, you've coached high school athletics. I've coached a little bit in my time. Mitch, I know you have too. And I don't care what sport it is, you all know that play where it's like, no, 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 yes, yes, yes. You know that exact moment. And it definitely played out there.
Oh yes, yes. I've had definitely a lot of those moments, and you got to have those breaks, right?
Yep.
That's part of the game. Those lucky breaks, and you hear it all the time. I mean, you get to a state championship game on skill, but there's luck involved along the way somewhere too. And that day, you know, Milledgeville's luck ran out, and Amboy had it all.
Yep. Now, Kyle, I will say that, when we were there, maybe we did create a little bulletin board material for the Clippers because they were excited to call us out. I think it was Coach Powers. He was ready to be there.
Powers. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He wanted to make sure he said it nice and loud. Give me the Clippers, baby. So I sent him a message. I said, "Hey, my bad."
Yeah.
he come back. He goes, "No, it's all good."
Yep.
And
yep.
that is what's fun about it. Like I always say, I have no problem picking somebody, and if I'm wrong, I have no problem eating my crow at the same time.
Yep.
And I was wrong.
It's fun to see how many listeners we get by them calling us out on bad takes. So I'll take that again. As I say to you guys, another satisfied listener. I'll take that.
I will say, I will admit that as the playoffs progressed, I really was intrigued by what Milledgeville was doing. And I really felt like Living Good moving to quarterback and just kind of some of the adjustments they were making. It felt like they were playing at a higher level than they had been throughout the regular season. And maybe I'll admit, maybe I just kind of lost track of Amboy, who just continued to do what they do. And they were just that constant that was plugging along. I don't know. Do you feel that way, Kyle, that maybe I did get a little blinded by Milledgeville had a lot of momentum and confidence riding into that game?
I don't think that I got blinded by Amboy. I mean, if you take a look, even after their loss, and I know ratings don't really mean a lot, but I say it all the time. If you take a look at the ratings, they're usually 85% correct when they're used for projection purposes. They're in that top 80 percentile. And even despite the loss, Amboy was never not rated number one for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And they even went into this game rated higher than Milledgeville.
Yeah.
And watching Amboy play a couple different times, I watched them play against West Prairie. They struggled in the first half, but then blew it open in the second half. I watched the game that they lost to Ridgewood. And I've seen Milledgeville on a couple different occasions when I had the opportunity to get them in, and I just felt like Milledgeville had the speed and the skill set, along with the size up front, to do similar things to what Amboy did last year. But when they got to the state championship level, I think the experience that Amboy has gained by being in that game the last two seasons prior really showed itself.
Yeah, they were tough and they were physical. And I think that you really saw that right away. And it was Milledgeville fought through it as much as they could. But like Mitch said, it was Amboy with the answers consistently. So congratulations to the Amboy Clippers. They've really established themselves in 8-man football here. And it's a fun program to follow along with. And, we saw Coach Payne up in the press box after the game, and he was very, gracious of our coverage. And even with the kind of, the little poking and prodding about us taking Milledgeville, he handled it all in stride. And he was very, just appreciative of the coverage regardless, so I love it. I just really, I appreciate that people listen and they understand that, we're just talking heads, trying to figure things out, but you guys go out and play the games, and they won it and they proved it, and they're a great program, and it's a fun team to follow.
Well, and that's what's fun about being a talking head. You can say whatever you want, but at the end of the day, they still got to go out and play. But You're right. I mean, Coach Payne, obviously, and Coach Powers, they listen to us, and I know Coach Shrimplin listens to us as well, among many other people, obviously.
Yep.
But, I mean, even today I had an email exchange with Coach Payne, and, he said, thanks again for everything that you do for the 8-man and NUIC. And, he enjoys watching our show and your show, and that's what it's all about.
Yep.
We want to bring a great show. Like you guys always say, we want to be positive on teams. Me, myself, I like to be positive on teams, but I like to give a realistic take on what I think is going to happen.
Yep. All right. Well, there it is. Congratulations to Amboy Clippers, back-to-back state champions. Like I said, I'm hoping later this week, by the time you listen to this, maybe it'll already be there on our YouTube channel. I'm hoping to put the full extended highlights with all the post-game reaction, all the celebration, all the highlights in there. It was a great experience in Monmouth. I was really glad I could make the trip. Monmouth does it really well. To my opinion, it's a perfect environment for that 8-man state title game. Kyle, you've done it a lot, so you've seen it, but it really is a fun night.
Oh yeah, the energy there, like you said, you get the stands full. It gets very loud, very quick. It doesn't sit in a bowl, but it kind of sits in a bowl the way it's just kind of nestled in there along that little hillside. And just the energy and the atmosphere. And then, of course, they had the new playing surface this year with the brand new turf. I like it. Now, I hear a lot of complaints about it. I heard again that they ran out of food at the concession stands. So, I mean, those are things that maybe they need to take a look at and make it a little bit better and understand that, hey, yes, it's 8-man football, and yes, it's the state championship, but you're going to have thousands of people here for this game. You might want to be a little bit more prepared. But, really the only other thing that's a complaint is the parking. And I can't really argue that one because I did have issues parking there last year. But it is what it is. Once you're there, the environment is awesome, and it's a great place to watch a football game.
I will say, per your advice, Kyle, I got the last parking spot in the lot right next to where the media, where the press box is. So that was great. I love that. And Mitch, you'll also appreciate that right down the road, there's a Circle K. So I had a Polar Pop as I left town to celebrate the Amboy Clippers state championship game. So all was right with the world, that night, that Friday night in Monmouth. So
you guys aware that I used to call games there?
I am not aware of this. No, we need to hear about this.
So this is when Alex Tanny was there.
Yeah.
A friend of mine at Ambrose, her dad was the SID at Monmouth. And I don't know why, but they didn't have much interest from like students to do broadcast of games. So this is when I was interning with the Bandits. Me and the media intern, through our connections, we're like, well, we'll go do it. And we did Monmouth football games for a year.
How about that? Look at that. Mitch Stormer, were you color or you play-by-play?
I was color.
Oh, absolutely. Mitch Stormer, that former quarterback, provide the insights.
That was a fun team too. Alex Tanny obviously did really great at Monmouth, and a lot of names, from the area that you would recognize. And that was a fun team. That was a fun experience.
So Mitch, I have to ask then, as a former quarterback, what were your critiques and criticism of Alex Tanny as a quarterback in college?
None. I mean, it would be absurd for me to critique that. No, none. He was fun to watch. He was a tremendous player.
Yep.
And went to the NFL. So if anyone thinks that they have D1 aspirations, you don't need to. Just get to somewhere where you can play and where you can shine, and things will always turn up for you.
Yep. This episode of View from the West podcast is brought to you by Simulation Sports. In addition to golf simulators and batting cages, Simulation Sports provides golf club repair, custom fittings for driver shafts, and even private lessons for golf,
baseball, and softball. Whether you're looking for a fun group activity or want to fine-tune your skills and equipment, Simulation Sports has something for everyone. Visit their facility at 400 South Main Street in Monmouth, Illinois, or go to thesimulationsports.com to start playing today.
Shouldn't financial advice focus on you? I can help you plan for your financial future, from protection to saving to retirement. I'm Nate Neighbor, your Modern Woodman representative. Call me at 309-233-2656 or find me on the Modern Woodman website.
Get to know your local Modern Woodman representative to plan for your financial future and learn about valuable member benefits. Modern Woodman of America. Touching lives, securing futures. Securities offered through MWA Financial Services, Inc., a wholly owned subsidiary of Modern Woodman of America.
View from the West podcast is also sponsored by the Cupcake Cartel. Gourmet cupcakes that are made to order. Over 40 flavors, including wedding cake, lemon blueberry, strawberry milkshake, snickerdoodle, and Oreo. Perfect for weddings, birthdays, showers, fundraisers, or any event. You can find the Cupcake Cartel on Facebook. We thank them for their support.
All right, well, here we go. Let's jump into Class 1A. We'll talk about the semifinals. We'll talk about the state championship matchup here. Lena Winslow going up against Belleville Althoff. If we're all being honest, I think this is kind of a matchup that we saw that was very possible when the playoff bracket shook out. This was two teams that we knew from the north and the south that were probably going to meet up at Illinois State, and here we are. Lena Winslow gets the win 42-13 over Leroy. The Panthers just kind of do what they do. They roll into the 1A state championship game for the 5th consecutive season. Kyle, you were there. I'll start with your opening thoughts on this game. It just, I don't know, like, I'm not surprised, but also like, I am surprised that 5 straight state championship appearances. This is getting into like rarefied air, even for the NIUC, which is a all-time classic conference and amazing accolades.
Well, as far as the NIUC, it is already rarefied air. Every time that Lena Winslow's making a state championship appearance, they're setting a new NIUC record at this point in time.
Yeah.
But yes, you're correct. I mean, there's only a handful of teams that have made 5 consecutive state championship games. I think you're looking at Driscoll Catholic, Montini Catholic, Rochester, and I can't think of many.
JCA.
Maybe Joliet Catholic. I don't know.
Maybe Joliet Catholic, but yeah, I mean, I'm already running out of names. I mean,
that's
how
incredible.
rare it is.
And the names you just listed are incredible. Like, yeah. Anyway, keep going. But it's amazing what they're doing.
So yeah, I mean, they're making their 8th trip now to the state championship game since 2010. And this is their 6th trip in the last 7 seasons. All of these are Class 1A records. Like, no other team has ever done this in Class 1A before. So, you know, and it's kind of funny because you're getting a lot of people chatting it up on Facebook or Twitter, X, whatever you want to call that platform. I still call it Twitter, but I know it's called X. But, you know, people are like, well, Lena Winslow needs to go challenge themselves. And my question is, like, why? I mean, we've watched them lose enrollment by almost 100 kids over the last 15 seasons, and they still continue to be dominant. You know, tell me other schools that can lose over 100 kids and still put out the performances that Lena Winslow does time and time again.
No, as a public school, it's ridiculous that someone feels like they need to challenge themselves. Like, they've set the bar. So if you want to get to the level they're at, figure out how to do it, in my opinion. And that is same to be said for almost any school in the state. I think if you want to get to where Lena Winslow's at, I think you try to you figure out what to do and make it work. They are absolutely doing what is set within the IHSA rule, right? Like, they're playing schools their size and they're winning consistently. Like, yeah, that argument's ridiculous.
And that's what's fun, right? I mean, at some point, this is going to end. We all know it's going to end at some point.
Yep.
sit back and enjoy it.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Sit
Exactly.
back and just enjoy it. I mean, yeah, everybody hates winners. Everybody hated the Patriots. Everybody hated Alabama. Everybody hates Lena Winslow. Everybody hated Rochester. Everybody hated Driscoll Catholic. Everybody hated Joliet Catholic. Like, when you have a run of dominance like this, like you said, it's rare.
Yep.
Sit back and enjoy the ride because you're watching history take place right in front of your own eyes.
I was somebody who was rooting for the Patriots to go undefeated, perfect record the year they lost to the Giants. I just want to put that on the record.
Me too. I agree with you.
I wanted to see it happen. I wanted to say I witnessed that history. It didn't happen. But anyway, Mitch, what say you?
Those old dudes from the Dolphins are annoying. So yeah, we need another undefeated team.
Exactly. Thank you.
No, I'm with you. Obviously, we've gotten caught up in similar conversations about this and private and public, and not to go down that road whatsoever. But yeah, to Kyle's point, just we don't get this often ever with any team. It makes it a little bit more special when you're talking about a 1A team in smaller communities. Yep. It's just more of a testament to that coaching staff, that community, that culture that they've built there. And you hope that carries on and carries on and carries on. So, yeah, this is every year that we've talked about Lena Winslow, they've lost a very special group of seniors. And it's just that continual next man up mentality that they've got. They've always got someone waiting in the wings. And so, yeah, I mean, it was one of those things this year where it was like, you could sense that maybe they were going to get there, but you could also see like, well, maybe they'll get tripped up. But They just continue to impress. They continue to win impressively, certainly in this game against Leroy, and heading into maybe their biggest challenge they've maybe ever had in this championship game on Friday.
Well, Mitch, give us some of the numbers here from this game. And then Kyle, I'll ask you to kind of get your thoughts on being there in Leroy, in that matchup.
Yeah, so Aiden Wild led the way, 185 yards and 3 touchdowns for the fullback. Lightning bolt here, Alex Schlichting, 137 yards with a touchdown. Kobe Kearns added one as well. Big turning point in the game was a Jalen Rakowska 53-yard pick six. So, again, you look at the score, 42-13. You look at the highlights. You look at how well this defense played against Leroy, against a rushing attack that had ran for over 4,500 yards or something this season, and just completely shut them down. Terrific game, terrific playoff game. And like you said, it's the Panthers just kind of doing what they do. And here we are again, talking about them in the state championship.
What'd you see, Kyle, when you were there? You were at this game in Leroy, and this Leroy Panther team was very excited. They were, this community, I'll let you describe the community atmosphere there, but it had to have been great. And it just Lena Winslow shows up and just imposes their will on these schools.
Yeah, it was awesome. As soon as I arrived, I sent a message to Bo Owens. I said, hey, I'm here. He wanted to meet up with me, which was really cool. And he came up and actually kind of startled me because he saw me. He came up from behind me and and we met, and he goes, hey, let's go up to the press box. So we got up into the press box and we just started talking about Leroy and talking about Lena Winslow. And, he was really talking about a lot of the history that Leroy had. Like, you could definitely tell. And I really have enjoyed talking with Bo. He's got a lot of passion for football, for Leroy, for the community. And, the fans all showed that exact same exuberance as well. And then all of a sudden I saw a buddy of mine from college, Doug Hageman, who is an assistant coach at Leroy. And then he's also the head softball coach at Leroy. And he goes, well, let's go down there. So we went down there, and all of a sudden we're talking to BJ Zalesnik. We're talking to Doug Hagman and some other members of the Leroy coaching staff. And, it was awesome because they were very appreciative of, me taking my time to just, talk about them and, put things out about them, even being way up here in the north, And, it was just the environment. I mean, it doesn't sit at the high school. The field sits at a complex outside of the neighborhood, right along a cornfield. They got the football field there. And then right outside the football field, they got another field that has the track and the practice field there. And, there's a house right across the street that has a Leroy flag, an Illinois flag. And then they have some great bar neon lights that are set up inside. And they have this huge big screen TV. And they had a couple different fire pits going and just had a huge tailgate party that went on the entire game and was still going on even after the game. Because I think I was like the second to last car to leave the field that day, because I didn't want to leave the field. Like, that's the ambiance of that place was just amazing. I did not want to leave because it just felt so cool. I mean, the sidelines were packed tight, similar to what you see in like Durand and Stockton. So it really had that old school, small school feel to it. And as far as Leroy themselves, they definitely looked every bit the part that we thought that they would. I mean, those boys are big. They're well put together. And they did. They came ready for the challenge. There was no doubt about that. It's like what me and Bo were talking about here earlier today. You get to that point where the execution of Lena Winslow coming off the line is like second to none. And if you're not ready for that and you haven't seen that kind of speed, it doesn't matter what you do. I mean, Leroy did everything they could to hang in there and just couldn't.
So that's what I want to pinpoint. I think that's the exact, from following Lena Winslow over the years in this podcast, I think that's what I've noticed, right? Is that they're always going to have a running back who can get the job done. But how is he getting the job done? It's because of the line play, and the execution is like, it's flawless, right? It's always so well done. Kyle, you've seen this team a lot. You've followed them. You've talked to Coach Aaron. What is it? I mean, that's it, right? It's up front. I mean, talk about it. What is the one thing year in and year out that this team is going to go into a game, and that's where they always have the advantage?
Well, I think it comes down to what I've said all the time. I mean, everybody's like, well, everybody lifts weights. They do, and I don't doubt that they don't. But do they do it religiously to the point where they're getting the attendance rate that Lena Winslow does at first? That I can probably say is not going to be as high. Some schools might be able to compete with that, especially bigger schools. But let's stay small schools, because it is tough to get that kind of commitment in small schools. But they do it time and time again. And that's one of the things that me and Bo talked about. They have a very similar program in their weight room that Lena Winslow does. They have the 0-hour PE program that starts at 6:00 in the morning, so that they can get their weightlifting in, and it counts as a class credit before school starts. And, then it comes down to Mitch's buddy, Austin Rickles, imploring all of that speed detail into what they do. They have the RPR system, so they're getting the rest. And then they have the speed training, so they're getting the speed, and they collaborate it all together. So very similar to what you see Coach Joseph and Coach Dixon posting on X, right? Lena Winslow does the exact same programs. They just don't post about it, right?
Coach Aaron is not quite as social media savvy. He'll admit that, because
Yeah. He's not a techie guy. Like, he'll follow along enough to get what he wants.
I appreciate that. I love it. I definitely love that.
I mean, he follows along enough to get what he wants out of it, right?
Yep.
And that's all he needs. You know? And I mean, he's got some other coaches that definitely follow things at a lot higher rate. And, obviously they have a good rapport there. Another thing that they have that most schools don't is their coaching staff is involved in multiple sports.
Yep.
And it covers all of the boys' sports at the school. Rickles is the track coach. Werhane's on the football staff. He's the baseball coach. Benson was the basketball coach, just stepped down. This is his first year not coaching basketball, but he's still on the football coach. The rest are on the football staff. The wrestling coach is Milder. He's on the staff. And then they have other guys that are also involved that also help out at the junior high levels as well. So they literally they build that from the junior high up. And while other schools can say, well, we do the same thing, I don't think it's at the same level, at least not from what I've seen.
What I thought was really interesting in the phone call with the IHSA media members this morning, Coach Aaron referenced that this group of seniors, or this group that was coming up immediately after the loss in the state championship game a year ago to Camp Point Central, said, Coach, we want to get back in and start working out. And even Coach Aaron said, like, I need a week. I need to decompress. Like, I need a week off. But those kids insisted on, we want to be in early. We want to start doing it. And he said that had never happened in years past. So for, as successful as this group has been, and obviously they've put in the work in the weight room, this was the first group that said the day, that week after the state title game, they were right back in there and they were getting after it. So I think that speaks a lot to this team in particular, right? Like, they were motivated by a loss in the state title game and they got right back there again.
Well, and that's just it. This group of seniors has also set new school history of themselves.
Yes.
They're the first group of seniors that have played in all 56 games, or at least dressed for all 56 games.
That is insane. So they have 6 seniors on this team who, throughout their high school career, freshman to senior, have played every single game that's possible for a high school athlete in high school football. It's crazy. That is remarkable. I mean, it's a testament to that program. And like we said in the beginning of this conversation, I just appreciate that, right? Like, I appreciate the fact that, like, I'm witnessing something that is very unique, that is very special, and it's happening in our part of the state. It's great.
Yeah. And, so the other thing comes down to execution. And I think one of the most unheralded coaches is Jared Gift. He's the offensive line coach. Most people don't even know about him, But I think what he does with his offensive line, or that offensive line, and even on the defensive line, is they're able to not just get off the ball, but be able to execute in the fashion that they need to in order to make the holes available. And it's football. You're going to get exploded at some point in times. And I think it's the resiliency that they have too of, okay, that play didn't work. They don't shut down and be like, okay, this play ain't going to work either. No, they think that every play is going to work every single time. And that is huge when your psyche and your mindset says, let's trust the play call. We know what we're doing. Let's go get it done. And you can see when they have a little lapse, because, you see Coach Benson and you see Coach Aaron get a little heated, in talking to the guys, like, come on, like, what are we doing? Like, you see that, but it's because that's the level of execution. I mean, they're almost at that level of execution of perfection, to where if they make a mistake, it's like, what are we doing? Like, mistakes aren't acceptable. I mean, they are, but that's the level that they're at, to where they expect you. That's the expectation, I should say. Yeah. It's not that they're saying that you can't make mistakes, because I know those guys, and mistakes are fine as long as they're hustle mistakes. They're not going to care. It's the dumb mistakes that they care about, which most coaches do, but these guys just practice it and practice it and practice it more so than I've seen anybody do. Yeah. And then it just comes down to the discipline. And I'm not saying necessarily the discipline of being in personal fouls and things like that. It's the discipline of playing selfless football.
Yep.
These guys stay home and don't chase better than any team I've ever seen in small school football. You always get the guys that want to try to make the play. They make a read, they start to chase, and all of a sudden it opens up the back door, and you got a counterattack running for an 80-yard touchdown. And Lena Winslow just does not allow that to happen. And they're the pinnacle of small school football right now, what you want to see. And I mean, there's a couple other teams I've seen that are truly small school teams that are very similar, and that was Byron and Wilmington as far as being that disciplined in what they do.
Yeah, all of what you said, I think exactly leads into the opponent they're playing next, because I think that it's going to take that sort of effort, right? That sort of discipline, staying home, knowing that the play could still come your way. So it's Belleville Althoff. It's Althoff Catholic. It's a team that we pinpointed last year, a team we pinpointed this year. Here they are. They get by Camp Point Central, the team that beat them a year ago. They win 58-19. So convincing win. Same as Lena Winslow. Convincing wins in the semifinals. Althoff Catholic wins 58-19. Mitch, give us the rundown on this one, and let's get into kind of what we expect in this state title game.
Yeah, it was a bit of a back and forth game early on. Each team kind of trading barbs back and forth. You saw CPC recover an onside kick, and for a moment there, I think I tweeted it at Kyle when this happened. Like, we've seen this before. That didn't hold up for much longer. CPC held a 19-15 advantage early in the second quarter, but then that Crusader just army of playmakers, De'Aaron Hill Jr., Jaden Ellington, showcased that entire team's immense talents, built up a 36-19 lead at the halftime. Hill I saw a couple different numbers for Hill, so we're just going to say that he was over 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. Ellington himself added 100 of his own, including on, I think it was 65 yards on the very first play of the game. All told, 465 yards, give or take, rushing against this really stout CPC defense. The Crusader defense was good on their own, shutting out the Panthers in the second half. So, if you follow this podcast, if you follow IHSA Football, you know what Althoff Catholic brings to the table. You've got at least 3 D1 commits right now. You've got offers on the table. You've got underclassmen, including Wellington, who's only a sophomore, who's going to be a big-time talent. Like I said a minute ago, I think this is probably the biggest test Lena Winslow has ever faced. Kyle would know more of the history than I would. Probably the best team Lena Winslow's ever faced. But look, not a lot of people are going to be in Lena's corner, and there's reason for that, and it's good enough reason. The talent alone for Althoff Catholic. But like you said, the way that they play, the way that they just took it to Leroy and how they do it gives them a shot, right? I mean, if you do the little things right, if you're I don't know all that I'm trying to say, but again, if Lena Winslow does so many little things right. And those are the things that have to go right when you're up against a team like Althoff. So does it mean it's going to happen? No. Does it mean that it could? Yeah, it absolutely could.
I think what's interesting is when we were on the media call with the IHSA earlier today, and we talked to Coach Austin Frazier from Althoff, and talking about playing Camp Point Central last year and then playing them again this year, that a year ago, they had really not seen a rushing attack like that, like what Camp Point Central does and like what Lena Winslow is going to do. So going back to that game, Camp Point Central executed to perfection, and they had so many things that they tried to do and they did successfully to win that game. Now looking forward, Camp Point Central and Althoff met again this year, and Althoff had seen it before. They knew how to prepare for it, and I think you kind of saw the talent withstand in this game, right? Camp Point Central is a very talented program. They're very well coached, but I think we kind of saw the pure athleticism of Althoff kind of win out in this one. Am I right in that aspect?
I think you're right in terms of the talent, but to Coach Frazier's point when he was talking on that media call, they also pride themselves on being very disciplined and doing the little things right. So it's not just so that they're athletic. Obviously, that's a huge advantage. But I don't think it's fair to say that they're winning on talent alone. I think this is a very, 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 very good group. And again, when you add those two things, a talent, but then a team that is disciplined, it's a really, really big hurdle to overcome.
No, I don't want to say that they're not. They're not.
You know they're listening, Greg. You know they're listening.
No, I don't want to say they're not disciplined because that's what got us in trouble last week.
That's what got Kyle in trouble, not us.
So we'll just put it out there. You know, we became bulletin board material, boys, because I did. I mean, I was getting overzealous in the fact that Camp Point Central got the win a year ago. I really like what Brad Dixon does at Camp Point Central, and I just got enthusiastic and I threw it out there. I knew they were the underdog going into that game against Althoff, and I threw it out there and said that Camp Point Central would do it again. They'd get the win. And Belleville Althoff proved me wrong. They proved us wrong. So now the matchup against Lena Winslow, they have to do it again. They got to go up against a team that's very similar to what Camp Point Central does. So, Kyle, I'll ask you, what are your thoughts going into this matchup?
Well, when I saw something from some guy down there thinking that by saying discipline that we're meaning something else, and I know where he's trying to go there, and it's not even the case. When I say that Althoff Catholic's not disciplined, it's not that they don't play physical. It's the fact that they will do things at inopportune times that cost them yards. I mean, they had almost 90 yards and penalties in this game. And tell me a team that has that many yards and penalties and still wins a football game.
Yeah.
The likelihood of that happening is very low. That's where I'm talking about the discipline. I'm not saying that they're not disciplined in how they actually pursue their gap responsibilities or their assignments. They definitely look a lot more physical this year than they did even last year. Yeah, the skill set's there. The skill set hasn't changed, but they do look more physical this year than they did a year ago. And I mean, film shows everything. Like, if you know football, you see it. And, I don't appreciate when some jack off wants to sit here and say that discipline is meaning another term that it's not. And so I'm just trying to explain what my thoughts are here. And it's just the fact that they do commit a lot of penalties that can put them in jeopardy in some situations. That's what they have to refrain from. The skill set, they're awesome. I have watched a lot of clips on Althoff this year, more so this year than I did last year, because like you said, I expected them to be here this year.
Yep.
I expected them to fix the issues that they had a season ago and be where they're at. I mean, heck, even in our state rankings, they've been number one for a long time now.
Yep.
And even closed out the end of the year ranked number one. So to say that we did not expect them to be here is complete falsehood. But they do have extreme speed. There's no doubt about that. Yep. And that's the area of concern I see for Lena Winslow. The other area is going to be on the line. Lena Winslow does not sub a lot on the line. Althoff has a defensive and offensive line.
Yeah. Yep.
And so going back, we were talking about this might be the biggest or the best, most dominant team that Lena Winslow's ever had to go up against. 2 years ago, they played DePaul Prep, who's in the 4A state championship game. DePaul Prep had a lot of athletes. They just made a lot of mistakes. They, too, had full line substitutions. Lena Winslow was able to withstand that then.
Yep.
back in 2018, I was at that game at Aurora Christian. Aurora Christian came down to 1A that year. And the funny thing is that they've been mired in 1A ever since. But they were the big team to watch. And Lena Winslow completely annihilated them. Lena Winslow did not substitute lines. Aurora Christian did.
Yeah.
And that goes back to what we were just talking about previously with the strength and speed training. Like, Lena Winslow is just conditioned to be able to play 4 quarters going both ways. Most teams cannot do, well, in small school football, most teams can. A team like this is not conditioned to do that. But when you have fresh legs, that can also be a difference maker. And in my opinion, that kind of favors Althoff in this matchup.
Yeah, I think a big factor will be just that endurance, right? Like how long can Lena Winslow's front line maintain against Althoff, who their defensive line looks a little different than their offensive line. And I think when it's fresh legs going into the third quarter and getting into the fourth quarter, man, I love what Lena Winslow does week in and week out. But this is a different challenge because their numbers are great. I mean, their numbers are really strong. We'll talk about it in a minute, but yeah, that's a potential. I can see that.
So, like you said, I mean, you named a couple guys. They only have one player going both ways. That's Charleston Colden. At times, they might put Jason Dowell in at like fullback, like Coach Frazier said on the call today, but it's not very often. I mean, most of their stuff is an 11 multiple. So he's got a tight end in there. He's got a single back quarterback set spread offense. And that's what they're going to run. I mean, he's not going to go and play double tight. That's not what they do. Like he even stated, he goes, we want to work to spread things out to create the holes from the inside out.
Well, it's all about creating space for them, right? As we talk about with a lot of teams. But yeah, that's not what a lot of our teams that have success on the smaller level do. This team wants to create space, whereas our teams want to dominate up front and win that game. So that makes it a really intriguing matchup. Mitch, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think it was interesting listening to the call this morning with Coach Aaron, and he was saying, last year they went into that state championship game against CPC. They thought that they were favored and thought that they just didn't play well, and that hasn't really sat well with them since that day. But this year, they're in quite a different position. They know that they're the underdog. He said it's not, I don't want to say it's an easier situation, but it's a situation in which Lena Winslow really has nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And does that make a team a little bit more dangerous? I don't know, but he called it a perfect position for them to be in. So it doesn't believe that there's any different pressure this year. Could even be slightly less pressure this year. So a loose Lena Winslow team, maybe. But back to what we talked about earlier, just about enjoying the moment. I mean, Deer Hill Jr., maybe the best athlete to come out of Illinois, right? The defending Gatorade Player of the Year. Coach Frazier said he's gotten even better this year. You can see it on the tape. So I can't wait to watch him play. So certainly for Lena Winslow, they're going to have to be ready on the backside because he can switch position at any time, switch direction. A lot of their players can. So certainly going to enjoy watching an athlete like that because, we don't get a ton of skill position guys that go to Oregon out of Illinois that often. So it'll be fun to watch him and see how Lena Winslow defends him and tries to avoid, putting him into a wide open space.
Yep. What I love about this matchup is, and Coach Aaron kind of alluded to it on the call, that it was, one way or the other. You're either going to get a matchup against a very familiar opponent in Camp Point Central, a team they'd played the last 2 years in the state championship game, or you're going to get this kind of like big time matchup against the vaunted Althoff Catholic school coming out of Belleville. So I think that's the exciting part. I think Rick Aaron, their team is embracing the moment regardless, right? And I think that's the mindset you have to have coming into it, is that they know how good they are. They follow along. They know what they're doing. But now this challenge is in front of them. And I think that if there's any program that's ready to embrace that moment and see what they can do and give it their best shot on the turf on a Friday morning, it's this Lena Winslow team. They're built for this sort of moment. I'm excited to watch this one play out for sure.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, everybody, I mean, even Coach Aaron had made the comment that, he was looking forward to the potential of a rematch with Camp Point Central just for the rubber match purpose.
Yep.
And ultimately, I think he knew deep down that he was going to see Althoff Catholic. And I think that he is excited for this matchup because it's not every day that you get to go up against a team with the talent level that Althoff has. And like you said, what do they got to lose? Coach Frazier even made the comment on the call this morning as well. This is Lena Winslow, who goes to the state championships game. I mean, he said 7 times in a row. It's not, but it's, not far off though. Right.
Yeah.
But he goes, who goes to the state championship game 7 times in a row and they're not good. Like, we're going up against the echelon of Class 1A football.
Yep.
And when you break it down, I mean, these two teams have been ranked 1 and 2 all season long. And that has not changed. The only thing that's changed is who's been 1 and who's been 2. And that's been very little change anyway. It's pretty much been Althoff 1, Lena Winslow 2. And then the rating system, it's kind of flip-flop back and forth. And if you take a look at it, it's like a toss-up game when you look at it on paper. But paper doesn't always play out, right? We know this.
Yep.
So you got to play that game. I mean, if we were playing off of paper, Camp Point Central is not your state champion last year.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
So, and another thing that, Lena Winslow has a little bit in their pocket is I'm sure that they'll get, film from Dupac or information from Dupac because Dupac played Althoff last year. I'm sure they'll get some information from Coach Dixon, in whatever games that Frazier sends along. And it's out there. I mean, you can go out and look. Anybody can go watch a lot of the games that Althoff has played, or at least find clips anyway. I mean, heck, they got to post it all over the place with their little highlights. I mean,
yep.
You watch a highlight film, you're basically watching one offensive series anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I mean, you can see what they do. And yeah, they're electric, man. This is probably one of the more intriguing state championship games on Friday.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I absolutely agree. So there we go. The Class 1A state championship, the number 2 seed, Lena Winslow, 13-0, going up against the number 1 seed from the southern half of the bracket, Althoff Catholic at 13-0. Friday, 10 a.m., Hancock Stadium, Illinois State. We'll all be there. We're ready to go.
The bags are packed. The tickets are bought.
Mitch, have you packed your bags yet?
No. No.
I'm
all
close.
Right.
Let me say this because you guys didn't sound like you're giving predictions, and that's okay.
No, we're getting there. We're getting there. All right.
Oh, you want me to start?
I guess let's go.
Okay, I'll start. Look, like we just said, everyone knows, I think, in the state what Lena Winslow is up against, and for good reason. An incredibly talented team from Althoff Catholic. They're going to come in as a heavy favorite, I think, and it's going to be an incredible challenge for Lena Winslow. But give me the Panthers in this one, Greg. Let's go. Let's see if they can take advantage of if it's a turnover, if it's a turning point of the game, something like that. Can that discipline that they've had all season, can that showcase in the right time, in the right moment? Can they slow down this game? Can they minimize possessions? Can they score? I think they can score on this defense. It's just going to be a matter of how do they slow all of the weapons down on Althoff Catholic. Not going to be easy whatsoever. But you think I'm picking against the Panthers? No chance. Go, Lena.
Kyle, what say you?
So I guess I'll be a little early on this, although I said last night I wouldn't. But the projections actually show Lena Winslow as a slight favorite.
Whoa. All right. All right. So explain, because I feel like every episode we need to explain so people know what you're referencing.
So what I'm referencing is the CalPreps rating system.
Yep.
And the rating system is just an algorithmic number that puts together wins, losses, quality of opponents, strength of schedule, opponents' wins and losses, opponents' is wins and losses, and it just puts it all into an algorithm. It does not look at Jimmy's and Joe's. It looks at games played versus wins and losses, and where were those teams rated at, and how did that all come together? And, you know, a lot of talk is Althoff's played all these big teams. You know, they played an 8A playoff game. Well, they played a first round 8A playoff team. Okay. There's a big difference between a first round loser in 8A and a team that makes it to the second round quarterfinals, semifinals. Yep. There is a big difference. You know, I'm sure that we could find Lena Winslow, a team against an 8A opponent up here that would be on a low end scale, and they would go beat them, right?
Well, we saw them beat DePaul, who's now in the state championship game, and that was only 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yep.
And next year they're going to be probably a 7A or possibly 8A team. So yes, Althoff has played some bigger schools, but I look at how big of the schools that they played, and yeah, they played a 3A semifinalist. They beat them by a point. They did beat Caneland, but Caneland's not the same Caneland that they have been. Granted, they're still a good team. They're a good team. They're a 6A school, and I believe they did make the playoffs too. So, I mean, there is a little bit of that pedigree there for Althoff, but if you actually look at strength of schedule, Lena Winslow shows a harder strength of schedule than what Althoff has, which means that the teams that Althoff actually has played are rated lower on average than the teams that Lena Winslow has played. Then I look at the Massey ratings as well to figure out score projections. CalPreps does it as well, but I like to look at both. And really, they're right about the same. One has Lena Winslow as a 2-point favorite, and the other has Lena Winslow as a 6-point favorite. But both of them favor Lena Winslow right now. Now, like Mitch said, Althoff presents a lot of challenges, and I'm not going to be surprised if they win. But when you're on the carpet against a team like that, and you have Lena Winslow that has the experience that they have, it's going to be like 32 degrees on Friday morning.
If that.
Yeah, if that. Right. That's the high. I think that's the high.
That's the high for the day.
Oh, boy.
So it's going to be
I'm getting
cold.
out extra layers as we speak.
So it's going to be cold. That's going to play an effect. It's going to play an effect in how the ball feels coming at you. If Lena Winslow can stay home and be able to contain and then use their offense as a defense at the same time, I don't doubt that they will score. Don't doubt it one bit. I think that they can score. I think that they can drive out plays. Lena Winslow is going to have to go into one of their more epic type games that they used to have with Dakota, where it was a battle of 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of mentality, where they just have to grind, chew clock and grind. And if they can do that, they're definitely going to leave themselves an opportunity here. They're going to have to make at least 1 or 2 stops and or create a turnover somewhere. And if they can do that, they're going to be right here. And I'll say it. Yeah, I think Lena Winslow will be your state champs.
I like it. I like it. And I also cannot pick against Rick Aaron. I just can't do it. Right. And I think that to your point, Kyle, I think that if Lena Winslow can, maybe slow down the game a little bit, I think Aiden Wild is a huge aspect in that, right? Because he's that big kind of bruiser through the middle. If he can establish himself, and if their line play can keep up early in this game, especially, give me Lena Winslow. Maybe that's the homer pick, and that's fine. But I'm not picking against Lena Winslow in a state championship game. I think they're so well coached and they execute so well that running teams win. Kyle, running teams win. So
run teams win in November.
That's right.
Have November weather on Friday.
So there we go. Maybe it's more bulletin board material, but that's fine. That's what we do.
Pitchforks and torches are headed our way on Friday. No doubt about that.
Well, hey, we'll be there in person, so they can
come say hi. Yeah, come say hi. It'll be nice and friendly. Come
absolutely. So
either way, it's going to be a great day. And like I said, I'm excited to see Althoff. I think this is a great matchup.
Yep.
And you know what? If they do win, hats off to them. I mean, because they've earned it. And but I want to see how they I want to see how they stack up. You know, it's kind of like Leroy last week. They wanted to see they wanted Lena Winslow. They wanted to see what it was like to go up against the power of what Lena Winslow is. And Coach Frazier said that on the call this morning. He goes, I want to see Lena Winslow.
Yep. I think for me personally, like, I want to see the athletes like Deerhill and, the quarterback, Jaden Ellington. Like, I want to see those athletes on the field, right? I want to get, personally, I want to be shooting video of these type of athletes, right? Like, this is fun for me. Like, I want to see a great game between some explosive playmakers and some just really dominant, line play and all of it. I'm excited. No matter how it goes, I'm excited to watch it play out.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt my feelings if Althoff wins. If they win, they win. I mean, like I said, it's a toss-up game. I mean, the projections aren't that far apart from these two teams. And, I take a look at their game with Tolono Unity. I mean, that was a 53-52 game.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah. Yep.
I mean, we could see a game similar to that because, honestly, Lena Winslow plays better defense than Tolono Unity does.
Oh, all right. Yeah, there you go.
I mean, they just do. They just do.
Yep.
So.
All right. There we have it. Have we thoroughly covered Class 1A? We will be there ready to go 10 a.m. for that state championship game. I can't wait. So, all right, boys. Well, the next time we talk about these two teams, we'll probably be in Hancock Stadium talking about it. So I can't wait. To everyone who's listening right now, follow along when we're there. We'll be, Kyle will be tweeting out from NIUC Football. We'll have tweets and, posts from View from the West podcast. So
maybe. I don't know if my fingers will work. I might have to leave that to Kyle.
There you go. All right.
What do you mean, Mitch? Are you going to walk the sidelines or are you going to sit in the press box?
I'll be down on the sideline.
There you go.
2A though, I'll come up with you. Greg might stay down for 2A. I'll be in the booth.
The View from the West Player of the Week is brought to you by Breedlove Sporting Goods, Western Illinois' premier sporting goods store for uniforms, apparel, equipment, awards, and online team stores. They offer name brands such as Adidas, Under Armour, and Nike, and are extremely responsive with any inquiries. With a primary focus on the western side of the state of Illinois, Breedlove Sporting Goods is the fastest way to outfit your team. You can check them out on Facebook or at breedlovesports.com or shoot Cal Breedlove an email at calbreedlove@gmail.com.
This is Dan Pearson of Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Our FCA team of staff, board, and volunteers is pleased to support View from the West with Greg and Mitch. Our Northwest Illinois FCA team is 3 teams in 1, serving coaches and athletes in the Three Rivers, Northern Illinois, and Greater Peoria areas, all with schools covered by View from the West. For more information, email me at danpearson@fca.org. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
The Quad City's first and only fantasy football show, For Fantasy's Sake, has you all covered when it comes to all of your fantasy football needs. The guys come to you live every Sunday morning during the football season from 10 to 11:30. They've got the best analysis, rankings, DFS, and gambling advice between the Rock and Mississippi Rivers. So tune into For Fantasy's Sake every Sunday during the football season from 10 to 11:30 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube.
Hey, this is Brett Bielma, the head coach of the Fighting Illini from Prophetstown, Illinois. You're listening to the View from the West podcast.
That'll do it for this week's episode of View from the West. Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to go out to Apple Podcasts or Podbean and subscribe so you can follow along, and downloads will come automatically every week. You can follow along on Twitter at ViewFromWestPod. You can also email me if you're interested in being a sponsor, viewfromwestpod@gmail.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.